Hi, my name is Tarina and I tried to find a texturing tutorial for Blender for beginners, but I couldn't find one, so I'm making one. Anyway, how to texture paint something using Blender or how to texture paint something using Blender and a 2D program. I will show that to you. First of all, you need a material for your model and the parts of the model that you want to texture paint. You can see the materials listed for any part on the material properties that looks like a beach volleyball here on the right side. You can see the list of materials here, and this model has multiple parts that have the same material called features. All these features have that material, and all the other parts are called colored. And currently the material, it shows pink because there is no material. It is referring to an image texture that is no longer there. We need to give it a image texture to refer to, and that image texture will be used to paint the textures. Okay, there's a couple of ways to create a image texture. In Blender, there's already made a view for texture painting, and it is here. And you can access it from the top part. If you want back to where you came from, it's the layout. This is the basic view. Other part where you can add an image, other than from here to this view, is from the material itself. But I recommend using the material so it's already in the material. You don't need to separately go put it there. So we are on the colored. It is the pink part here. We create a new material or texture for the material, and you can select multiple by dragging down on a panels like this, and you can do math here. So for example, I can divide this by 2 to get it to 1K texture, or I can time it by 2 and give it a name like texture colored. So I know what the texture is for. It's for the material called colored. And click OK. And it is now assigned there. And it's the same. No, it's not the same. You can see all the textures you have in your Blender project on a lot of places where there's an option to put on textures. For an example here, I could drop down here to find. And if you're like there, you saw that there was the number 0 on front of that texture. It means that there is no users for that texture. So this texture is not in use anywhere on the project. That is just what it means. Don't worry about it. Anyway, now it's in use. There's no longer 0 in front of it. And you need to separately change the 2D view. It shows only one image at a time. You can see again the images from here. And Blender downside is that when you edit this image, it does not automatically save it. So you need to remember to save it. It happens from here. You can edit the image. You can save it or save as. I think when you create an image, it doesn't automatically have it saved. So you need to first time save it once. So when you create a texture here, it doesn't save it. So remember to save it. Save as image texture. There we go. Okay. If we want to paint this, we can select different tools to paint with. For an example, just draw and paint. Let's do some red here, yippee. And I currently have, I think, yeah, mirror on. If you edit it with the mirror on, it is also on here. Anyway, and you can change the color, yippee. If you want to change what part you are painting, I recommend saving the image first. You can see that there's this little star logo on next to the image text. That means that the image is not the saved image. And yeah, remember to save. Too many times have people who have been texturing in Blender lost their progress because Blender just simply doesn't save the file. That is for practical reasons, but it's not practical when you're texture painting. Okay, now to edit the other material, if you want to, for an example, texture paint the ear, you can move to it from the right side panel as long as you're on texture painting mode. When you go to the texture paint panel up here, it automatically switches to texture paint mode. If you have trouble getting back to texture paint mode, it is like any other mode here. You just need to have the object selected and no armature selected. So for an example, if we go to object mode and I select this ear here, I need to go from here to go texture paint again. And now we're texture painting the ear. But it is pink because there is no image texture there. Or actually, let's open one. This folder called nimetön. Don't question, it's called nimetön. Okay, and it's white texture. And I also have this same file open in Paint. So I'll show this one to you. Bucket fill it to red and save it. When you come back to here, we switch to the nimetön file. It looks like white, even though the file is currently in Paint, it is red. We colored it red. That is because we need to update it in Blender for it to update what the image actually looks like. And you can do it from here by a reload, but the quick button for it is Alt-R. So Alt-R, it turns into red because it updates just what is in the Paint file. This is a separate option for you to do texture paint that I recommend, not necessarily with Paint, but with other programs. And a way I would go about this would be to do like approximate, like, okay, I want these tips to be like this color, yippee. It's gonna be pretty. Now when you save this, and you go to Paint, obviously it doesn't have the correct file version. You'd have to open it. Looks like this. And now we can here edit this. We can add like a black line here and save it. And here Alt-R. The black line is added. Yippee! And other texture painting. If you want to texture paint in Blender, other useful tools is the palette. Here it is under, it might be like squashed to down, but the color palette, if you don't have these panels showing, you can show it with the N button, and you can tweak the like tool you're using from here. The color palette is useful because with the S key, so like save, we clicked S and we click on a part, we get it in here, but you need to select it from the color palette, the color that you have picked up from the project. Yeah, still works like that. I hope that was useful. This looks like a mess, but that is in practice how you can texture paint in Blender and using a 2D software. And to clarify, if you're using something like a Krita or Alpacaso Paint or Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint or Photopea Online, whatever, if you have layers as an option for your image, you can open the file version or a file format on Blender that accepts layers. For an example, you can open a PSD file on Blender and view it on Blender. Only thing is that you cannot edit it like a PSD file. Let me show that real quick. So now I am saving, I opened this file, which is a PNG file on Clip Studio Paint. If we create a new layer, and for an example, add a little multiply blush on this character, like so, and we save this as texture and save it in a Photoshop document program or PSD. It is PSD. Save it. And when you're in Blender, when you go to the material to switch, you can take the PSD file and open it. Now there's blush. The downside obviously is that if you paint here, this Blender doesn't recognize the layers. So if you edit this here, it is gonna turn it into a like remove the layers. But if you want to add, for an example, shadows to your model using Clip Studio Paint or any other details that you want, Ctrl S to save, and here Alt-R to show it. Super fast, super practical, can take a little bit to get used to, but that is how you can texture paint in Blender. Do I recommend using Blender to texture paint? No, but it is quite cheap option because it's free. If there's further questions or I was super confusing with my explanation, feel free to join the Discord. I'll leave a link down on the description for more confusing explanations like this one. Thank you.